I've lived in Canada for less than a decade now. And still, every winter, I feel like a newcomer. There are days when I step outside and the cold hits me like a wall, sharp, heavy, almost personal. Even with layers of modern clothing, insulated boots, thermal gloves. There are moments when the wind steals my breath. When the snow stings my face. When I find myself panting just trying to walk forward. And every time that happens, a thought rises in me, quietly, but powerfully. If this is how I feel, with all the technology of today, how did the first peoples of this land endure this? How did they walk these same winds? With no electricity, no fuel, no modern gear. And not just survive, but build entire cultures here. It humbles me. Because winter in Canada is not gentle. And yet, long before newcomers arrived, long before cities, heaters, and highways, Indigenous peoples lived through winters far harsher than anything I have ever known. They raised families here. They hunted, traveled, built homes, and told stories here. They understood the land in a way that feels almost impossible to imagine today. So this episode is not just about survival. It is about genius. It is about resilience. It is about a relationship with winter that goes deeper than fear. A relationship built on knowledge, respect, and thousands of years of lived experience. Today, I want to take you into that world. Into a Canada before wires and engines. Into the winter that shaped nations. Into the brilliance of the people who walked this land long before us. And who understood winter better than we ever will. How Canada's Indigenous peoples survived winter, a truth frame story. The land before wires. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples across this vast land, the Cree, Dene, Inuit, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Mi'kmaq, and many others, lived through winters that would freeze exposed skin in minutes. And they did it without electricity, gasoline, or metal tools for most of their history. Yet they didn't merely survive. They built entire civilizations around winter. This is the story of how. 1. The first secret: winter was not the enemy. To modern eyes, winter looks like a threat. To Indigenous nations, winter was a season with its own gifts. It brought predictable animal migrations, frozen rivers that became highways, snow that insulated shelters, ice that preserved food, a slower rhythm for storytelling, teaching, and ceremony. They didn't fight winter. They partnered with it. 2. Shelter, architecture shaped by the earth. Different nations built different winter homes, each perfectly adapted to their region. The Inuit, masters of snow. The igloo wasn't a snow hut. It was engineering brilliance. Snow blocks cut from wind-packed drifts. A dome shape that distributed weight. A raised sleeping platform where warm air collected. A tunnel entrance that trapped cold air. Body heat plus Kullik, seal oil lamp, warming the interior to comfortable temperatures. Inside an igloo, you could remove your outer layers. That's how efficient it was. The Cree and Dene, subarctic forest engineers. In the boreal forest, snow was too powdery for igloos. So they built Caribou hide tents in earlier times. Log cabins once metal tools became available. Spruce bough floors for insulation. Double-layered walls packed with moss. The forest itself became insulation. The Haudenosaunee, long houses built for community. In the east, long houses were winter fortresses. Wooden frames covered with bark. Central fire pits. Smoke holes. Families living together for warmth and safety. Winter was communal. Warmth was shared. 3. Food, a year-round strategy, not a winter panic. Indigenous food systems were not last-minute survival. They were year-long cycles of preparation. Preservation was everything. Before winter arrived, communities. Dried meat and fish. Rendered fat into pemmican. Smoked salmon. Cached food underground. Stored berries in seal oil. Froze meat in natural ice cellars. Nothing was wasted. Every season fed the next. Winter hunting. Winter wasn't a dead season, it was a hunting season. Caribou migrated in predictable patterns. Moose left clear tracks in snow. Snowshoe hares turned white but left trails. Ice fishing provided steady protein. Trapping lines were maintained daily. Snow made tracking easier. Ice made fishing easier. Cold preserved everything. The Inuit and marine life. In the Arctic, the ocean was the pantry. Seals breathing at igloo, ice holes. Narwhal and beluga migrations. Ice edge hunting. Harpoons with toggling heads. This wasn't random luck. It was generations of knowledge. 4. Water, always available if you understand the land. In winter, water is everywhere, but not always safe. Indigenous peoples mastered the art of finding and preparing it. Melting clean snow, never the first layer, which contains impurities. Using ice from lakes and rivers. Storing water in animal skins. Heating stones and dropping them into containers to melt snow. The key was energy efficiency. Melting snow takes enormous heat, so they used shared fires, insulated containers, pre-warmed stones. Nothing was wasted. Not even heat. 5. Travel. Winter was the best time to move. This is the part modern people often misunderstand. Winter wasn't a barrier. It was freedom. Snowshoes, the original all-terrain vehicle. Different nations created different designs. Bearpaw snowshoes for dense forest. Long, narrow snowshoes for open plains. Curved tips to glide over deep snow. A skilled snowshoer could travel faster than a modern hiker. Dog sleds and toboggans. In the Arctic and subarctic, dog teams pulled Kamudiak sleds. Toboggans carried heavy loads. Frozen rivers became highways. Winter was the season of mobility. Canoes in winter. Yes, ice canoeing. Along the St. Lawrence, people used canoes to break ice, slide across frozen sections, paddle open water. It was a hybrid sport long before Europeans arrived. 6. Clothing, technology made from nature. Indigenous winter clothing was not primitive. It was superior to European clothing for centuries. Animal skins were high-tech. Caribou hide is one of the warmest materials on Earth. Why? Hollow hairs trap heat. Lightweight. Breathable. Insulates even when damp. Inuit parkas, mitts, and boots were masterpieces of design. Layering systems. They used inner caribou layer, fur-facing skin. Outer caribou layer, fur-facing out. Waterproof sealskin boots. Mittens with removable liners. This was the original, technical layering system. 7. Knowledge, the real survival tool. Everything you've heard so far, shelter, food, travel, clothing, was built on one foundation. Knowledge passed down through generations. This knowledge wasn't written in books. It lived in stories, ceremonies, mentorship, observation, trial and error, deep respect for the land. A child didn't learn survival skills. They grew up inside a culture where survival was woven into daily life. 8. A final truth, they didn't just survive, they thrived. When you look at the ingenuity of indigenous winter life, you see something profound. They didn't wait for modern tools. They didn't fear the cold. They didn't see nature as an obstacle. They built technologies from the land itself. They built cultures that matched the rhythm of the seasons. They built knowledge systems that lasted thousands of years. And winter, the same winter that challenges us today, was their teacher. Winter didn't defeat them. Winter shaped them, and through them, winter shaped Canada. Thank you for walking with me through this story. May we continue to learn from the land and from the people who understood it best. This is TBK for Truth Frame. Thank you for thinking deeply, staying curious, and walking this journey toward truth with me.